And now a 60-second improvised speech on why adults need recess too. We got Alex Knight.
Life's hard. Life's difficult. We need little moments of enjoyment and release. People are addicted to their phones because we need a little bit of like joy. We need some sort of fucking little endorphin or something. And I think if we could take just 15 minutes to roll around on the floor, like I guarantee shit would get so weird. Your boss and you would drop the level of embarrassment in the office. We'd all feel on par. We'd get to express ourselves like children. We could go back and attack that work much better.
30 seconds.
I believe that recess is important because it's a time for flirtation as well as friendship. We don't get a lot of time for friendship and camaraderie. I think games are important. I think hide and go seek is an excellent thing to do in an office. I like to talk to teachers, and that was the only time to really connect with a teacher and tell her how you were feeling about the other people in the class, and that would be a good thing to have.
You're right. Absolutely. That was a whole minute. Oops, see, the whole timer went off on that one. Good
All
job.
right.
Okay, so you really spent recess time connecting with teachers?
A little. I mean, there was times, right, when you needed to like say something.
Yeah.
Like someone was mean to you.
You got a tattle?
What's that line, right, of a tattle or like
Addressing a real issue.
fucking defending yourself?
Yeah, exactly.
Or others around you.
Appealing
All
to
right.
authority. I think that's the right way to do it. Okay.
Ladies and gentlemen, now, and folks of all kinds. That's polite.
It is. You did a good job.
I covered it. It's a new world, and I am, as a cis white male, like the farthest behind. I mean, it's no fucking excuse. I should be in the front because we put in the fucking front for everything. But yeah, I'm getting better. All right. Now, 60 seconds of an improvised riff. No, this is just a riff.
Yeah.
It's just a riff.
That's 'cause-
60 seconds of a riff about the emotional trauma of stepping on a Lego.
Stepping on a Lego is one of the most difficult things you can go through. And I believe it's probably a lot of people's first recognized trauma. Like sometimes trauma happens to you before you're able to like record and keep memories. But I think that stepping on a Lego is one of those ones that you never forget it. And it's awful. It really is a difficult time because no matter what, it's corners and irregular shapes. And nothing about it says your foot should touch it. It's like if
30 seconds.
If a jellyfish was square instead of squiggly, you know. And also, I wouldn't want to step on either one. But can you imagine the combination of the two? If you had like a Legoed jellyfish or a jellyfished Lego, I think that would be terrible. Like if a Lego could sting, it would maybe be the only thing worse than stepping on a Lego on its own. And if a jellyfish had corners, might be the only thing worse than getting stung by a jellyfish. So the combination is actually the worst.
1 second, sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Those flat ones, a one stack's not bad.
Oh no,
But
I guess
like,
that's
yeah,
true.
yeah. I mean, no, I didn't say that. I'm just thinking about like stepping on like a flat, like a
Like the
5x8 shingle. Mm-hmm. That's not so bad. In fact, that's almost
Preferred.
that could almost be like a nice texture. Like
It would be like those Adidas slides that they have that you would have like that have the. Do you know which one I'm talking about? That have like the like plastic.
100%
doobly-doops
with the
all the way?
100 doobie doops. Yeah.
I
There
don't
were
like 'em.
90s that had them at River Point when I went.
Oh.
So just even talking about those monologues, like there's this terrifying moment, right? And you and I both experienced comedians, but still are like falling. And to my chagrin, I panicked, kind of. You're like reaching out instead of just calm, whatever. And for me, it is like when I was talking about bullshit that was unrelated to me. As soon as I did say a thing about teachers, that was kind of a true thing.
Yeah.
Not that I like connecting to them, but I do remember that moment of like, now's a time when they're alone, everyone's distracting, you can connect with them in some way. And like, I don't know, for me, comedy, all the stuff we're going to get into is about like truth.
Yeah.
And I was panicking and drowning until I found a moment of real truth instead of even maybe calmly waiting, finding some truth or whatever. But or maybe not. Maybe we do have to panic and swim around and look for those things. But like, for me, once I do find something real and true, it's like, oh, I can talk about that for a long time.
Yeah.
It's hard for me to like swim around and make jokes about school and recess that aren't true to me.
Yeah.
But I think that's my first impulse is like, how do I make people laugh and connect with people like randomly things that aren't me? But the truth is it's easier when it's me.
Yeah.
I don't know.
leave the swimming in schools for fish. Anyway, this is dumb. I agree. That's the same thing. We talk about this a lot in the writing circle that we do with the comedians, where it's like, if you can find whatever is hard, weird, scary, or stupid about a situation, it usually gives you enough like emotional
for you
tie. Yeah.
Yeah.
So with this one, it was like, ooh, well, that makes me angry, and I know that's a hard situation to go through. So
the Legos,
yeah.
It can be fucking brutal.
I've lived a pretty easy life. I'm not gonna lie to you. So
yeah, so that's hard. That
that's
really sticks out.
Me. All right, let's get started with the
Let's
real
do it.
Welcome to the Goofball Coalition, the podcast that lives where improv and stand-up collide. And now, here's your hosts, Alex Knight and Sarah Kennedy.
Hello and welcome to the Goofball Coalition, the podcast where stand-up and improv puts on a little truce and we kind of hang out. I'm Sarah Kennedy.
I'm Alex Knight.
And this is our first episode. This is really us just kind of swimming through a school, I guess, and figuring out what it means for us to do this podcast, which I think is an important piece of like sociology or like an art exploration. Because it's not just us being goofy goofs, although I do like that we get to kick things off with those speeches. It's about figuring out why is there really a difference? There seems to be like a rivalry that is like very deeply set among the performers, and I don't know if regular people can sense that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I don't know. We're going to get into it over months and months and years, hopefully. But I mean, even my first impulse is that it's just an art form that people gravitate towards, and because you like this thing more, you just create a camp for it. But like, it's just, they're similar art forms, but it's like whatever kind of speaks to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's get into things, because today's episode is all about origins, our origins stories, like maybe where we think that this feud started, and just kind of introducing y'all to us and us to y'all. So Alex, we've got like a couple questions here, but really just tell people a little bit about your experience in comedy, what you've done, and that kind of stuff.
Yes. So my name is Alex Knight. I am from New Mexico, Corrales. I went to school here. I went to UNM for the free tuition, which was smart and great. I graduated with a theater degree, and then my freshman year, actually, of college, there was an ad in the paper for this place called Gorilla Tango, and they were opening an improv theater downtown Albuquerque, which is now the recording studio we're in, which is so trippy because the stage was right there we used to perform. But this man from Chicago came, and he recognized Albuquerque as a town that was ready for improv comedy, and that's something we can get into later, of like the cultural evolution of a city and when like it gets comedy of any kind, because for sure like a small town doesn't, but at some point people feel like they, I don't know, the city wants this in some way. So he opened up this theater. I was kind of a kid. I was the youngest one there. It was downtown. Everyone was drinking. I was too young to drink. And anyway, I like joined this community as the young kid and started doing improv there, and then just kind of continued to do it. I started doing film and TV stuff in town. Gorilla Tango shut down. A new theater called The Box opened up with the people from there, and I started working at that theater as well. I've become the artistic director of the theater a couple times. We've had multiple leaders, but like I was the leader for a bit. I left to LA, came back, and I'm running the theater again right now. So we do like weekly improv shows. And that's kind of what I do, is like facilitate growth of the improv community in town, as much as you, I think, facilitate the growth of the stand-ups in town and stuff. Not fully. It's not like our jobs, but I think you and I are definitely like mother hens that are trying to help this community, because I feel weirdly we really love it. I really love improv. I really love comedy, and I really love giving people the tools to express themselves in this art form that has given me so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So
your turn.
Yeah, you got it.
Yeah.
So I started comedy here in Albuquerque after our only like stand-up comedy club closed. So Laughs Comedy Club, we had it here for a really long time through like the 80s and the 90s boom. And then it closed in 2009, and I started in August of 2009 because I met a comedian, Matt Peterson, who's fantastic. I met him at a party, and I was like, where do you even do this if you don't have a club to do this in? And he very specifically was like, it's DIY. We do it in bars, we do it in theaters, we do it in galleries, wherever they'll have us. And that really struck a chord with me, because
when did you have that impulse? Like, why even approach this person and say, hey, that art form you do? How do you do it?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. There was one night that I was drunk and I was mad at my girlfriend at the time, and I just went home instead of hanging out with her, and I wrote just like a 5-minute set, I guess is what it would have been called, but it was just a bunch of loose jokes, and I actually used a bunch of them the first time I actually got on stage. But
like that would have been angry poetry or an angry painting, but it came out in whatever reason for you
What's
as
the deal
jokes.
with her? Like,
yeah,
it was
crazy.
very much like that.
Huh.
But it was I don't know. It was one of those things where it's like growing up, and we'll dive into all that stuff too about when we were kids and kind of that first inclination we had. But it just was always a thing. I knew Rusty also, and Rusty was doing it through Tricklock and kind of doing one-man show stuff. And I thought that was always very interesting. And so just kind of picking up the brain of somebody who was out and doing it just really, it gave me something to talk about to this man at a party, which was cool too. And I think that's a fun thing about being a comedian is it makes it easy for people to talk to us at parties. They think they can do it.
Or I don't know, I feel it's our responsibility as comedians to connect with as many people as we can, meet all these beautiful people that are weird in their beautiful ways as we all are, and like, I don't know, see those different perspectives and stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And it's so interesting too, because I think one comedian named Steve Rogers has a joke where he's like, people think comedians are so charming, stand-up comedians in particular. But it's like, no, you're just seeing something that I've rehearsed many times before I'm comfortable talking. Yeah, exactly. Whereas I think improvisers really do genuinely kind of have like a little like everything's a gift and the kind of like approach to it.
We feel more naive. We feel more like sweet, loving, like, oh, that's nice. Whereas, it feels like stand-ups are constantly like mining from you and being like, this fucking guy, I'm going to use this later or something. It feels like, maybe not true.
Or I practiced this a lot in my house by myself before I came here tonight. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So I started comedy at a bar show, did comedy here in Albuquerque for 5 years, and then we still didn't have a club. Moved to New York because I wanted to just see what it was like because at that point I was like, no more DIY. I want it already deed. So I moved to New York because they take comedy very seriously in New York, and was there for 5 years. Got to do really cool stuff, and I think we should talk about our credits too because we've done really cool stuff. And then came back in 2019, and it was only supposed to be for a year, and then something crazy happened in March of 2020.
Oh yeah,
wild. And then stayed for a little bit longer. Bought a house and then decided to open up the club because it still at that point 13 years later there still wasn't a comedy club. And so me and my wife, we run Dry Heat Comedy Club, which is right down the street from the studio, and in that time, in the 2 years we've been open, now we're about to have 2 more come to town, so we're about to like
crazy. It's
wild. Right.
Yeah.
So that's us. But yeah, okay. So we are already touching on it. Like, what were there times that you were funny when you were little, or that times where you were like, comedy's or improv's a thing, or?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure we were the same. Just growing up, I was funny. I don't know. Maybe some of it was like taking care of the family. Like my family was fine. Like for sure, there was nothing like weird that sticks out. Which I mean, any family's weird in their ways or whatever. What am I trying to say is that like maybe my mom was sometimes maybe sad, and I would like try to cheer up my mom maybe. So I think that's maybe where it started. Also, I mean, if we want to get into it, like when I was really little, this is not fully it, but this is part of it, maybe. Boy Scouts, we're going to like take a group shower at this like retreat thing, and I am uncircumcised. And that's like, I guess, it's uncommon, or at least it is maybe, whatever. And I was really insecure about it, and I got a little teased about it. And I think stuff like that, also being small, I'm small in stature, and like I'm pretty skinny. Like I had things that, insecurities. And I think very quickly I learned to be like, to block and defend with my wit and my mind to make people not look at those insecurities.
Yeah.
And to be honest, a little bit in middle school, there was times when that came out. I was like bullying, and I would be like, "Look at that person! Like, get them! Like that person is weirder than me. Don't look at me." And so, for sure, there was time when it was like very much an aggressive, defensive mechanism. But then I think in high school, there was a point when I was doing that in classes, and I saw how shitty it was to the teacher, and I saw it was like, cool. I'm like, I don't know. I'm making aggression between the class and the teacher. And there was some point when something clicked in my head, and it was like, oh, I can make everyone happy. And I can actually find a way to facilitate like less of a class clown, more of a class comedian in some capacity of like, how can I make everyone happy and I don't know, soften the edges between the teachers and students or whatever. And that was like huge because then I became a good person, I think, like whenever that was. And I totally wasn't before. I was scared and defensive and using my wit and brain to like hurt people or at least to defend myself in like a weird way. I don't know if did you have anything like that in any capacity?
Yeah, I guess that's interesting that you say that because I mean, I think mine was always that like growing up, I just, and now I'm realizing it's probably like a very undiagnosed neurodivergence, but like I just did not like, I couldn't communicate the same way that everybody else was doing it. And so then they would look at you like, you're weird, you're like acting weird. And so I realized if I could like, I don't know, step outside of it and just like comment on stuff that was going on and make everybody laugh, then there'd be like some reassurance that I was communicating clearly or that people immediately got what I was putting down, you know? And so just like conversationally, that was a use for humor. But then, I mean, I went to church for, so I went to preschool at the church that we ended up going to, and then my family got hired to clean the church, like it was a side job that we all did. And we were there, we had that side job until I was like way into high school. So we were very involved in our church, like literally into the nuts and bolts of the church.
Yeah.
And so I got to be in a lot of plays and stuff through that, and that was the first time that I was able to say like get a little theater bug and get it going. And so I liked that, and then that seemed. It was familiar for me when it came time to like pick electives in high school and that kind of stuff too. And so then it was just something, which is crazy because when I got to college, my parents were like, "You cannot major in theater." Like, and I sometimes I wish they would have let me because it would have been a much faster college process for me. But
instead of figuring out what you don't want to do,
stubbornly just was like, "Fine, well, I'm going to be a communication major for 7 years." And
yeah, same thing basically,
Yeah,
kind of,
exactly.
right? It's
Yeah.
like the watered or like the official version.
Yeah. So, but then
Less costumes.
Yeah, exactly. And then it was kind of one of those things too, where it's like I like music and I like to play instruments and I like to, I don't know, do a lot of things. And so when I got a chance to do stand-up comedy, being in theater, you learn improv games and warm-ups and that kind of stuff too. But doing stand-up comedy really appealed to me because you don't need anything. You just need like the thoughts in your head, and you don't have to like arrange even with other people, and everything is there for you. And so I kind of like the idea of like not of just being able to get up there and be like actor, writer, director.
Yeah,
go.
It's crazy how improv you don't need anything, but you kind of at least need a person. Yeah. Stand-up is even like less. Yeah.
Improv is so interesting. It's like a stone soup situation. Where it's like we don't need anything to make this happen.
We need an audience. We need a suggestion. We need other people, and 2 wooden chairs.
Yeah, exactly. Those really expensive wooden chairs. People don't even realize.
They're very expensive.
Yeah.
They're metal right now at our theater at the box, and it's like it's nice because they're tough, but like we throw them sometimes, and it's dangerous. It's dangerous. You got to like have a little thing in your head where you're like can't go that crazy,
right?
Which sucks to limit your art form in any way. I can't throw this fucking chair against the wall. I mean, it's good, but.
Yeah, I didn't realize how expensive chairs were until we bought our own space, and we had to be like.
Do you guys need a chair? You need a stool, don't you?
Yeah, we need a
tall
stool. A stool is very important, and stools are very expensive. Our one wooden stool was $40, and I was like, "How is this? I'll build one."
I mean, you got to think about the people that are making comedy chairs. They don't have a lot of. There's not many comedy clubs, and they need to. Like,
I make stools like my daddy and his daddy before.
I've always run the comedy stools.
Yeah.
You said music. Do you still do music?
Yeah, I have. I play light guitar. That's what my acting resume says. And light guitar, I keep a lot of instruments at our house just because I like the idea that like maybe you can just hand them out and then like a little music
little parties.
Starts. Yeah, exactly.
Music parties. Yeah.
We used to do that a lot.
That guy shows up though sometimes.
And then you're like, okay,
that
we
one
have to
guy.
share the instruments.
The guitar
like,
guy.
Yeah. And you're like, all right, that's the 4th Sublime song.
Although he's
gone.
More. I used to be afraid of that guy in like high school. He would take your girlfriend, but I haven't seen him in a while. Same as the raft guide. He's out of my life kind of as a threat.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. I haven't seen like a lot of that guys anymore. But.
Yeah, I think just as an adult, like I lived in LA for a while, and people are shitty there, and it's like I don't find them. You cultivate a community. If you're hanging out with assholes, I mean, if it's work related, you can't really deal with it. Yeah. But like in general, I've kind of found a way to avoid those people.
That's definitely something I want to talk about in another episode too is because you picked LA and I picked New York, and I think that they have two completely different vibes. And
Totally.
the reasons why people pick them are so interesting. So
I think we learned similar lessons. Seeing again,
Certainly.
like you said, stuff like done up all the way or whatever. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, one other question, and then we'll scooch on to the next segment. We've both done both, so that's kind of, listen, as much as it's like I'm improv, or he's improv and I'm stand-up, we've both done both. So what is it, why, how come you wanted to try both?
Yeah.
And why did you end up gravitating toward improv more than the other?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I think, honestly, the improv, like, showed up for me, but also I was getting a theater degree. I am an actor. That's, like, how I make my money, and improv is acting, whereas stand-up's not quite. It's, you know, there's elements, of course, overshadows for sure, but, like, it's not quite. It's like every time I do, and same thing with stand-up if I did, but every time I do an improv show, I think I'm, like, increasing my acting ability, which is my main thing. It's like going to the gym for all of my life skills every time. Also, I think the team sport, the team element, I like team sports. I like passing and taking care of each other in that way. Yeah, I don't know. I definitely wanted to try stand-up because it's like they are similar. Like, oh, I can make people laugh. I should be able to do it over here too. And I've done it a few times, successes and failures in both. And I love it. It's almost like you don't have time to do both, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know almost anyone. There's a couple people in town maybe, but like anyone that really bridges both of them. Because if you want to do something well, and this is something I learned from Tricklock, I think, like a theater company I was with for a long time, like, do you want to do something? Do it well. If you're going to go on stage and have people watch you, you're asking to take people's time in that way, like, you better be good.
Yeah.
In some way. Maybe not good, but like, give a shit.
Mm-hmm.
Even if you're bad, you better be like wanting to do it really well. And so I think maybe I just never had time to dedicate fully to that. And it was always like, oh, I could do these jokes. Like, I have this notebook's full of, like, I'm sure like any stand-up thing, it says like stand up, and then there's like this bad joke, unrefined, terrible, like 3 words or whatever. Like, I have it, I just haven't gone through and like cleaned it in respect towards my audience, I guess, almost. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah,
But you, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those things too. I think is really interesting where it's like, you know, to be an expert in something, you're supposed to have 10,000 hours or whatever people always talk about. And so it's when you're doing both, you're splitting your hours. Like, you're never gonna. I mean, you've just now made your job twice as hard.
Yeah.
And for me, I found that like stand up this is gonna be a lifetime thing for me. I'll never be like, well, that's the end of that. I'm so good at that. Like, you'll never ever finish it. And so
God, it would probably fuck you up.
Could
if
you
all of a
imagine?
sudden you couldn't, if I couldn't perform.
If the world was like, that was plenty, thank you.
Because you probably have a diet, for me at least, of like getting your demons exercised through the craft. Like, it's my therapy more than I realize, I'm sure. And I bet it's got to be similar.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it's one of those things too where it's like, because this is such a, and we'll learn more about this too the more we go through it, but it's like, as much as like it could be my therapy, there's so much I'm juggling to even make it happen. Like, where it's like, well, I'm running the I'm keeping the lights on in the building, I'm hosting, I'm making sure the box office has everything it needs, I'm making sure that like the lineup is the right way or whatever. So because of that, I don't have time to think about my demons, which is maybe its own therapy. Where it's like, I'm too busy, don't even get on me, we're not doing this.
No, they're there.
Yeah.
They need to come out.
We'll figure out time to do that when I'm not so busy. But like, we've got lots of opportunities for that. But improv is fun, and I do like the team aspect of it. Like, I think there's I've tried really hard to make stand-up a team thing, and it's really, really hard to find people who are like, yeah, us solo performers, we're in it together. There's something that...
There's moments, right, where like a group probably runs into each other a bunch of times at an open mic or whatever and starts to form something, I'm sure.
Yeah, they say, like, historically, like, any movement, like, any social movement that has, like, resulted in like a bunch of famous people at the same time, like kind of like an Andy Warhol situation, or even further back, like
the
Mary
Rat
Shelley.
Pack.
Yeah, all that. It's because a bunch of people came together and they helped each other out. Like, and so they really rose all the boats.
100%.
And so knowing that, and that's then it's like, well, we should be doing that with stand up and helping each other out and getting each other those opportunities too. And it's just really hard. It just seems like as soon as you kind of get something, then somebody comes in and like pulls the Jenga piece out and just makes it kind of like all collapse again. Which is, I think, maybe, if we want to get really into it, like the core of creation and destruction and like that kind of stuff too.
And comedy, I think specifically, it's always changing and there's new ways to I don't know. It's like we need to be thrown to the side in some weird ways. And like these two art forms are like, I feel in a lot of ways like cutting edge. Like we have the ability to talk about exactly what's fucking happening right now. It takes a sculptor, months to like oh, I see this thing happening in the world. Let me process, let me put it out there. And we're like, this just fucking happened or whatever. Like, so many times, I don't know, there's like celebrity deaths, and then it's like you have a show that night. Not that you're going to make fun of them, but like that is a thing that is affecting. Like Matthew Perry passed away, and like, I don't know, the audience wanted some Matthew Perry shit. And so we gave it to him, like lovingly, not making fun of him, but like we wanted to talk about it because it's what the audience was going through. And we have this opportunity right now to be on the pulse or whatever.
Yeah, I think about that too. Like I've always said in my other podcast that I did, Comedy Ghost Town, I said like every city should have their own comedy club and their own comedy space, because it's the only place where you can get everything just immediately synthesized and given back to you, like at the most local level, all the way up through like nationwide news and world news. And so it's I think I don't. Sometimes people take comedy a little too seriously, and they're like, it's the only way for you to like laugh and have joy in the world. Like, there's plenty of ways to have laughter and joy in the world, but it is a really cool way to like have somebody have an opinion about something that just happened and kind of help you process it. I think that's a really cool thing that comedy can do. I lost my train of thought about where I was going to go with that, but I do think that with improv in particular, that's pretty cool that you can do it lovingly, because I've seen some open mics where if you know somebody famous died that day, I'll skip the open mics because I'm like, God,
tear them up.
Yeah, they're gonna ruin Alice from the Brady Bunch for me.
It's so weird that that's the impulse again, and we'll talk about all of this shit, but like how that first impulse for comedy, I'm teaching at high schools or I'm teaching basic classes, and it's like that first impulse is always raunchy, blue. It's pulling from like the cultural, I know this will get a laugh. Like we can get into like racist humor and shit, but like there is so much of that it's like, that's not your experience. That's you calling someone else's experience. And I feel like I don't know, there's just this impulse of like being rude and nasty because it's going to get a reaction. But like, I bet there'd be great stand-ups of like a deceased celebrity that you could do like a smart, intelligent, loving, and still funny set about.
Yeah,
it's tough though.
You
Tougher.
gotta be able to do it. Yeah, but speaking of that too, like what your experience is with the high schoolers sounds a lot like when we have brand new comedians at open mics. They will get up and they will do comedy that they've heard on podcasts, or they'll just be like, I've seen somebody do Kill Tony, so I'm gonna act like this is Kill Tony, and then then they have to hit like all of the like hot button issues or whatever, and it's like, don't just get up and try
yourself.
it. Yeah, tell a joke, tell us who you are. Like,
well, this is going back to our monologues. It's like at the beginning, I'm like, school, what do you all want? And then it's like, well, what do I want? What's my truth? And then again, there's like a softness and I don't know, you can feel it. You can feel that truth in there. Yeah. And those people are probably not ready yet. They're not comfortable enough in the art form to be able to dig deep enough to get some good stuff or whatever, some real stuff.
Yeah, for sure. And the truth that you found is so profound, because you also brought up about how much you were like, I became a good person when I stopped making fun of my teachers. And I'm like, you need them during recess. Yeah, so
you need those people.
Okay, let's go to the last segment and close things up.
Let's do it.
All right. Okay, so in the third segment, what you will normally see is audience questions. So if you've got audience questions, we want to hear them from you. We also talk about what we've got going on kind of here in Albuquerque and just, kind of the wrap up of things. So no audience questions today because no audience. But also, if you want to give us a question, there's a couple places that you can find us. So we are Goofball Coalition Pod on YouTube, Goofball Coalition Pod on Instagram. We also have a Patreon. I know. Is it too early? Never.
No.
It's patreon.com/the Goofball Coalition Podcast. There are 2 tiers that you can sign up for right now on our Patreon. One is Team Stand-Up and one is Team Improv. It is $1 a month. Both tiers get the exact same behind-the-scenes footage, audience shout-outs, and other cool things that we're going to sprinkle in throughout it. It's really a chance for us to have a scoreboard. So if you like improv over stand-up, pick that tier. If you like stand-up over improv, pick that tier. And then during these episodes, we'll take a look at the scoreboard and just see who's winning.
Just want to know.
Yeah, it's nice. And then that way we can kind of cater things to whoever. Like if people come in here and overwhelmingly want to talk about improv,
we'll figure it out.
We'll do it. I've done both. I can do it.
Yeah.
We'll yes and the hell out of that one. Where if people come in and they only want stand-up.
I'll clean up these jokes.
Yeah, exactly. We'll stand up against this brick wall, and we will make sure that it happens. Okay, so we got. We went through that little pretty quickly. So is there just anything? What are your hopes and dreams out of this podcast, Alex? What do you want?
Yeah. I think. I've been doing this art form for 2003, 21-ish years now. And all of the time I have been growing in my theories and my thoughts of it, but I would argue that, especially coming back from big city, coming back here, seeing what they're doing there started to crystallize my belief system in what this art form is. I think I've only been really critically thinking about it for the last like 3 or 4 years, like really, really critically thinking about it. And I think this is a great opportunity for me to look at it from a different perspective, as well as just comedy in a broader sense. And like, I'm honestly super excited to nerd out about whatever this is and why the hell I'm doing it and why people have paid me to do it, because they see value in like, why is this, why does comedy even exist? Like, of course there's so many simple reasons, but there's a depth to it.
Yeah,
I'm really excited to explore it with you and with guests and stuff. I hope we go for a while and get deep in it.
Yeah, that's my plan too. I hope so too. We've got in 2 episodes from now, we're going to talk about the audience in general, and just because the way that people are like, New York's a character in this movie or whatever, the audience is just as much a part of the show as the people that they're watching on stage. And so there's just different approaches to addressing them that I think happen in improv versus stand-up, and probably a lot of commonalities too. So talking about that will be really cool.
Yeah, well, and even down to just what you said is like the conversation I had, I want to open that also with an audience. So like, however we can also connect with the audience, the more we can get them in there, because going back to, I think audience is super important for what we do. And so like that dialogue, we have it here, but I'd love it with them.
Yeah. And Alex and I have known each other for a really long time, but we're all, this is new for us too, and so it's really exciting. Yeah, so if we could get a suggestion from you for a relationship, that would be great. Something like vampire victim or dentist patient. Okay, we'll figure that out later. You can also do jokes like that to me if you ever feel the need to like be like. Anyway, yeah, my hopes and dreams about this podcast are similar. I just think it's kind of neat to explore anything that looks like it's conflict, because on maybe even at like first blush it does, but I've had instances where I've had to explain to like Uber drivers and stuff like what it is I do, and then they always go like, so is it like stand-up comedy? And you go like, yeah, it's stand-up comedy, and they're like whose line is it anyway? And then you're like, no, not like that at all. And so then you're like, no, it's more like Dane Cook, and they're like, oh, like Dane Cook, I like Dane Cook. Anyway, here's your final destination.
I like this guy.
He's a good guy. He loves Dane Cook, and he loves Whose Line. And but it's also such a funny thing too, knowing like the history of improv and everything that's come out of it, and the people who come out of it, like to only be able to reference sometimes Whose Line, sometimes still, which is crazy.
That's all we got.
But I'm excited to talk about all that stuff too. I have a really weird theory that I one day really hope that we get to do a deep dive on about improv and about Del Close as a dude. So I'm hoping we can address that sometime too. Yeah. So
that's your dream.
That's my dream. I just really want to pin you against the wall here and be like, did he invent Scientology?
What happened?
But that's it for episode 1. Thank you all so much for sticking out with us, or sticking out with us. Yeah, that's how it goes here. Follow us anywhere that you get your podcasts, including on Apple Podcasts. Make sure that you subscribe, rate, review us there, and we'll see you next time on the Goofball Coalition.
Thank you.